in a function that would otherwise fall to the U.S. government?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing this work nearly 30 years. This is the worst practice I've seen, and this is the most unusual situation I've seen, where the government committed the wrong, is not fixing it, and we're actually paying for it out of our own pockets. It's an unbelievable situation.
Julia, look, there were red flags about this from the beginning, from the start in 2017, about not having a clear plan to reunite these families. But can you connect the dots for us from that initial warning to your latest reporting?
Yes, Alicia. So in 2017, this started as a pilot program, mainly in the El Paso sector. And at the time, prosecutors started saying, look, I'm going into courtrooms where judges want to know why I am bringing prosecutions against a defendant who is a mother that is still breastfeeding. My judges and I want to know why we have 11 children under the age of 1 year old that have been separated, and why we are choosing to prosecute those parents. And they were told to keep going, to keep prosecuting them. They came up with an age limit. They decided it should be 12. And the reason they came up with that age limit of 12 in the middle of the pilot program, after they'd been separating babies for 6 months, they decided that they needed to be able to be old enough to find their own way back to their parents. That's because there was no plan to track these children and have them actually be reunited by the government. They thought that it should fall to the children. Now we can see how hard that is to even think that 12 was the right age when we have lawyers at the capability of Legal Learn and ACLU and others who can't track down 545 of these parents. How were 12-year-olds or anyone of that age group supposed to find their own parents? And then that advice was actually ignored. When this became a real policy in 2018 as a zero tolerance policy across the border, and they separated over 2,800 families in the span of 2 months, they said, forget the age minimum. Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein said there should be no child too young to be separated from their parent. You should prosecute all parents regardless of how old their children are. And again, we know that in early May of 2018, they ignored all of the lessons of the pilot program. They knew these families would be separated. They did not have the capability to reunite them in time or to track them. And in a show of hands vote in the Situation Room at the White House, the majority of the president's cabinet raised their hands and said, let's move forward with this policy anyways.
Lee, where is the ACLU on the search for these parents? I mean, how hopeful are you that they will ultimately be reunited with their kids?
Yeah, so Alicia, I think that's the right question. I'm remaining optimistic, just like I remained optimistic that we would find the initial 2,800, and we did. COVID has made it very difficult. That's slowed things down, but we will not stop till we find every last parent. The problem is that even once we find them, the Trump administration is saying they can't come back to the United States to rejoin their children. We believe, given what they've been put through, given that almost all of them are in danger in some respects, that they ought to be allowed to come back to the United States to rejoin their children and be given some status. I mean, I think that's the least we can do, given what we've done to these families. But I remain hopeful. At the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, Julia, the Supreme Court is set to hear arguments on the legality of the Remain in Mexico asylum policy. In an interview with the AP, top Trump advisor Stephen Miller, and the architect of so many of the policies that we're talking about, says they're going to seek to expand the program if Trump wins a second term, get more countries involved. I mean, Julia, we're talking about reshaping asylum here in the United States.
Well, and it already has been reshaped. I mean, Lee can see this. We've all seen this. I recently wrote about Cameroonian asylum seekers who were able to come to the United States and make claims that they had been imprisoned by their own government. And because of that, this rule that if you've passed through another country on your way here where you could have claimed asylum, whether that be Mexico, Honduras, any other country where you could have potentially claimed asylum, you can't claim it here. People with claims like that were shipped back to Cameroon, where the government already has warrants for their arrest. And if those kind of people can't make an asylum claim, who can? It's really been so pulled apart. We know that people are waiting on our border, even though the Supreme Court has said that the Remain in Mexico policy shouldn't go through. We know now that what the Trump administration is going to try to do if they get a second term, or even in a lame duck, would be to try to throw so much at the wall to see what sticks, simply to try to deter asylum seekers, because it's been a goal from the very beginning of this administration.
Really, I thought it was pretty telling. The former Vice President Biden, in the debate in the section on immigration, talked about how unprecedented it is to have asylum seekers seeking asylum in the United States in another country. Can you talk to me a little about the conditions these asylum seekers are facing in Mexico while they await their court hearings?
Sorry, was that for me or for Julia?
For you, Lee.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, so that's another case of the ACLUs, that the conditions in which they're waiting are horrendous, but beyond that, it is extremely dangerous. The families are often just sitting ducks for cartels. They've been plopped down there. They're not from Mexico. They're waiting months and months for hearings, now longer because of COVID. As Julia said, this is unprecedented to have this type of situation. We need to have an asylum system. I mean, after World War II, we said never again will we turn our back on people fleeing danger. The Trump administration has effectively ended asylum, and we have to do something about it. I think it's one of those things that it's at the border and people don't realize what's going on. There are people fleeing real danger, and when they get here, they're being sent back to their home countries summarily now, or they're being just put into Mexico with nowhere to go, facing danger, horrendous conditions. This is a serious, serious situation, and I fear it's going under the radar screen.
Right, as we often say, it's a question about the type of country that we want to be. All right, Lee and Julia, thank you both so much. It is the first national vote early day, and across the country, voters are cashing in. But not everyone's happy about that. We'll look at the effort to intimidate American voices when our coverage carries on after the break, live from Telemundo headquarters in Miami.